Good evening. Welcome to this regular meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education. It's good to see everyone here tonight. We'll call this meeting to order. Mr. Jenkins, I believe you have our student to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
It's my pleasure to introduce to you, this is Megan Brady. Megan's here with her mom and dad, and she's one of our top math students. I said that's pretty fitting with all the math teachers. In fourth, I asked her to write this down so I wouldn't forget it. In fourth grade, she was third place at the county level, second place at regional. This year, we had the first place fifth grade team at South Jefferson, and she was second place in the county and first place at regional, and now she's headed off to Huntington to Marshall for the state competition. Let's start the pledge.
I invite you to stand and join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Keep up that great math work.
Yes. Amen.
All right.
Mr. Jenkins, you're not leaving, are you?
Yes, sir. Why?
You have to stick around for a few minutes.
For a couple minutes? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Bye. See you all. Bye, Megan.
If you can.
Oh, I can.
Okay. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Mary Ann Tomasic, a teacher at Shepherdstown Middle School, currently pursuing 2 master's degrees, and in her spare time, prior to that, she went to Finland to extend her education a little further. She's going to take a few minutes. You have a handout there at your table, and she's just going to share some of her highlights of some of her experiences. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. What I made for you is an outline of a lot of the different things that I learned, some of the stuff we know from everything that we have in our media, and some of the stuff was new to me. But what I wanted to talk about was an experimental program they are doing at their high schools called phenomenon-based teaching. And it is kind of a cross between project-based teaching and our co-curricular or cross-curricular teaching, where during a 9 weeks period or a grading period, they'll spend 4 or 5 weeks doing concept learning in their classes. And Finland, surprisingly, is PowerPoint slides and lecture notes and kids taking notes. That is over 80% of their pedagogy. And then they do tests, and then individual projects, and then group projects. They believe in concept learning through lecture notes first. So what they do with the phenomena-based teaching is they test all of the students with this Belpin test to determine what kind of a role they would be in a group work, whether they're the leader or the follower, etc. And then they'll make groups of at least 6 students, so it's 6 students makes a team. The teachers then get together, so it will be math, their Finnish language, if they're taking another language, their history, if they're in psychology, and they create the curriculum together, and the students will then have projects. So after the first 4 or 5 weeks, each week they have a different project, and that project has to be based, in order to do it, they have to use information from what they've learned from all of those courses during that time frame. And then every teacher grades it for their particular class, and they might have a different grade for a different class. So that's one way they'll do it. Another way is they'll have 1 week of lessons. On that Friday, they'll take the class, and the next week, the students will work on the project. Now, the interesting part about this is when they're doing their project work, they don't have to go to their class schedule at the regular time. One particular team might say, I really need help with the history portion of this, and they might go see the history teacher. They might need to be with that history teacher for a couple of days, and then they might need to see the math teacher the next day. Or if they don't feel that they need that extra help that time, they'll go into one of the break rooms in the school and work on the project during that time. And I know we can't be that flexible in our schools or in our country just because of the way our class schedules runs, but I kind of think it would be a really neat idea if we worked together with some of our project-based learning with the other teachers and have them create, hey, here's a project that they can do that involves all of our courses and all of the work that we teach. And that's pretty much just kind of what I wanted to present today. And if there's a lot more information in the packet that you have, that if you have any questions, I have my email at the end of it.
Thank you for sharing this with us. I'm kind of wondering if I can get a do-over. Questions, colleagues?
I just have one question. Yeah. While you were there, I noticed their junior high, it says the 7th through 9th grade.
Yes.
And that they have the industrial arts and home economics. So did they have such as, kind of, I say, old time without dating myself, the classrooms that some of us in the room may have experienced for that? I mean, I know we have fax classes now, but where you actually had shop as well?
Yeah, they had shop, and they have, it's kind of beautiful. I do have some video and stuff. For my course, I have to actually make an iBook that will have some video embedded in it. And their schools are beautiful, but of course there's, it's a socialist, democratic socialist country, so everything is equal at the schools. And so their designs, they actually, where we get bids and look for the best thing, they actually have competitions for architects to design the best schools for them. So one of the schools that I went to, the high school, was the same designer who did Dulles Airport. And that's the one that's on the cover of that pamphlet. So yeah, they do it that old time. And the other thing that I did not know is that high school is not mandatory. I did not know in Finland it's not mandatory. So 10, 11, 12. But they say most of the kids go, but I think it's because it's usually a 50-50 split between the academic-based and the VOTEC-based.
So does college entrance start for them in 10th grade then?
No, they still they don't do standardized tests. They just do the matriculation exam, and so they still won't go to college until after 12th grade. So if they don't go to high school, they're not going to go to college.
At what point do they separate the VOTEC and the academic kids that are going on to college?
In the beginning of 10th grade.
I'd love to see that. If you would email us your finished book of pictures, and that'd be great. Thanks.
I particularly like the picture of no matter the weather, the students will bicycle to school.
Yes, lots of bicycling in the snow.
And now this is part of a graduate course that you're taking at Shenandoah?
At Shenandoah University, yes. It was just called Topics in Education, Finland, and it wasn't one that was required to graduate, but I couldn't really pass up the opportunity to go to Finland and learn about their education system.
Good for you, and thanks for sharing it with us.
Welcome.
I thought for sure you were going to pick up the phone.
Superintendent, comments?
No, sir.
Approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of our last regular board meeting and special board meetings held on March 13th, 15th, and 19th? Those were the LSIC meetings?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, clarifications? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Citizens' comments. We have one that's signed up, Ms. Donna Joy.
Hi. I'm here on behalf of the HISTA students at Jefferson High School. HISTA's the only predominantly minority club at Jefferson High School, maybe also at Washington, and it was recently denied the right to wear the cord and shawl at graduation, even though the club meets the stated qualifications of based on GPA and being a school-sponsored club. So, I mean, I would imagine it's a school-sponsored club because they meet at the school. Let's see, they also have higher requirements than many of the other clubs that have been approved. So I emailed Mrs. Fitzgerald, and she claimed that someone at the board office denied these students. And I asked her to, state specifically who it was, but she never got back to me. I also called the superintendent's office, and Ms. Harner said that she thought the same thing that I did, that based on what we had read, or what I had read on the school board website, that it was kind of left up to the school principals. So then I emailed the superintendent, but she never responded. So I'm trying to get clarification as to why HISTA students, the only minority, predominantly minority club, is being denied the ability to wear these robes and be recognized at graduation. So I don't know if you respond or just say.
Thank you for. So are you done? I mean, are you finished with your comments?
So I'm asking if you will allow them, these students, to wear these the cords and the shawls at graduation. And if not, I mean, I'd like to know why, because they seem to meet the requirements.
Thank you for your comments. Let me say, first of all, citizens' comments are welcome. If the comments are about an issue that is not on the published agenda for the meeting under the West Virginia Sunshine Act, the board is not allowed to consider or to discuss an issue that has not been properly noticed to the community to be on the board agenda for that evening. Now, I would like, for just as a point of clarification, to ask, do you know what HISTA, that's an acronym, what's the full name?
Oh, Health Science Technology Academy.
Thank you. And I do recall that this issue has been discussed previously, and I believe that the schools have come to some policy on this. We'll make sure that it's available on the web so that people can see it and know for sure what the policy is.
Well, I know what
Thank
the
you.
policy is, but there's no reasoning. There's no justification. So that's what I'm asking for. You know, if you're going to deny these students, then maybe just explain why.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda.
No changes.
Okay, do we have a motion to consider the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second? Any proposed changes to the consent agenda? Mr. Jenkins?
He doesn't even know what jeopardy he's in.
The board was up here deliberating whether to accept the consent agenda tonight. And I think we had the votes to reject the consent agenda. But the superintendent told us that you were more than deserving of retirement.
Thank you.
So I'm just glad. I mean, I will reluctantly, and I think my board colleagues will reluctantly approve this. But I do have to say that I'm glad it didn't happen while my kids were still at your school, because I would have felt some personal guilt.
Nothing personal.
Any questions or clarifications on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Jenkins, thank you very much.
Thank you. Very nice, I appreciate that, thank you.
Now we need to add him to the substituted.
Yeah, now you better get out of here.
Bye, see you.
Actually,
Take care of that right away.
as Mr. Jenkins always has, his first and foremost thoughts have been for South Jefferson. Part of his timing has been so that he can continue to help us with transition as we search for a new principal and help them get accustomed to South Jefferson and make sure that they're successful moving forward. So, as always, he continues to be an exemplary both principal and human being in all sorts of ways. So, good man.
Okay, no unfinished business, correct? Okay, under new business, personal care aid at Driswood. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. We are doing,
Oh, are we doing,
which one did you wish to do?
well, you're
How was it?
you're
Driswood?
doing A and B?
A and B
Okay.
is me, yes. And I am asking for your recommendation of a personal care aide for a 1-to-1 at Driswood Elementary School. I know I've given you, go over the data that I have given you.
Mhm. So we have a summary.
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion to consider?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? And this would be, obviously, what is this just for the remainder of this school year, and then we,
Yes, this one will continue.
okay. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Now, this is a new one?
This is a continuation.
The second one is a
The
continuation.
second one is the continuation
Okay.
of the personal care aid at North Jefferson, and this one is through June of 2019. This will be for the transition to, at the bottom of my summary, this student will be entering the autism program and just making that transition smoothly.
Gotcha. Okay, do we have a motion to consider?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
thank you. Questions?
I have a question. It says through June of 2019. Is it supposed to be
Next school year.
19 or- Okay, so
Next
it
school
is
year.
for the whole
Yes.
school year. Okay.
Because it won't happen until August of the next school year, so we want to make sure, from what I have given you so far, we feel that this needs an additional year to make sure the transition happens smoothly and pull them away starting in January, the 8th.
Okay, any other questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Ms. Fitzwater, I mean, oops.
Yes, sir.
And does this typically dramatically help the situation, or?
Both. It can. I've also had 2 or 3 this year that it didn't. We did the data. We
Kinda
over
depends on the-
over the 5-6 weeks didn't work, didn't come to you with it. And that's kind of where we try to preempt the asking.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, is this Mr. Dingus? Or, okay.
So, as a superintendent, I received an inquiry from a business in our community a couple of months ago asking if the board would give consideration to the sale of a portion of our facility located at both 635 and 655 McGarry Boulevard. As the board's aware, you purchased the entire building. It's comprised of those two separate addresses, 635 and 655, for the purpose of creating a transportation facility. It's now the Jefferson County Transportation Operations Facility. And throughout both the construction and the renovation of that project, it is actually consists of two separate buildings on the same piece of property. One of those buildings, the 635, we occupy in total. We do continue to have expansion space there, both upstairs and some rooms outside of the staff development area. On the same property at the 655 location, we are currently renting that space out to a company called United Forest Products, who builds pallets. We both obtain rent from them, and we pay taxes on that portion of the building because we're not using it for school usage. We're renting it out. We pay taxes on that to the County of Jefferson. And the question has arisen whether or not the board would consider the sale of simply that portion of the facility. So I'm bringing to your request for consideration to put that out for bid. The board cannot do a direct public sale. An individual can't come to us and inquire and say, can I buy those laptops? Can I buy that desk? Can I buy this building? If there is something that this board deems is surplus or not necessary for our future growth, and that the proceeds would be of greater benefit to us, then you can place that property out for public bid. So we did a couple of things in terms of due diligence. One of those was researching the fiscal impact. And the board purchased that building in its entirety for $3,002,778.76. That includes all fees, tax tag, title out the door. And to date, over the past 3 years, we have garnered $204,000 annually in revenue from the lease of the building. We've had to pay $22,000 per year in taxes on that portion of the facility, which netted us $182 a year. So, you know, you've made back about $600,000 out of that sale, or out of that lease. If the board were to solicit a bid for that and be able to achieve a bid of at least $2.4 million or more, you would have, in essence, gotten a free bus garage. You would have bought the entire thing, renovated this half for the benefit of the citizens of Jefferson, and then sold this half for the same amount that you paid for the whole thing in the first place. So we sat down and looked at the long-range plan, met with Ralph's staff, with maintenance, with transportation, and in discussion with them. Currently, because we lease the other half of that facility, and it is already outfitted pretty significantly for industry. We don't have that portion of the building is not included in any long-range building plans that we have. The cost of retrofitting it back from its industrial applications back to something that would be usable for us would be fairly significant, and in our review of the market would actually be more than if we were to go out, let's say we wanted expansion place for maintenance or for something else, we could find another facility that's already geared towards that at a far less cost than retrofitting the other portion of that building. As you know, we've recently purchased a significant amount of land without having going out to bid. We used the money that the board wisely saved up over the last 8 years. So we have a significant amount of space to meet all of the future growth needs for both our student bodies, our educational facilities, and all of our auxiliary operations facilities that we need. And the sale of this property would in no way limit our future plans and would replenish to a fairly significant degree, depending if you got a sufficient bid, the coffers for moving forward in the next phase of development for instruction, for construction, for a whole host of different means. So.
Now, we previously had already subdivided that property, correct?
Yes, sir. We do have a plat that has it subdivided. Yes, we do. Now, it is not physically divided.
No, but it is two separate pieces.
It is two. It can be. Yes, sir. It can be. It's already surveyed for two separate pieces, and we could certainly, if physical separation is a concern of the board's, you would have the authority to stipulate in any contract an actual the degree of physical separation that had to exist between those facilities. They currently coexist right now. You know, we have an industry in there right now and coexist with our transportation.
Can we get a motion to consider? I'm sure there'll be some further questions.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Further questions?
So we were long-term, we don't have any plans for that facility, at least that would affect us in any way in a negative way.
No, ma'am, we do not currently have that facility in our long-term plan for building. I mean, certainly we have all of that space, but we still have a portion of unused space just on the side of the JCTOF that we've already developed that we have ready for use.
Can you speak to the, if we approve this, then what's the next step? I mean, how do we put out an RFP for an auctioneer to hold a public auction, or how does this work?
We would place ads in the paper soliciting bids, soliciting written bids for it. We wouldn't place it up at a public auction with an auctioneer gavel.
Okay.
No, sir. We would place our specifications, and certainly the board would want to consider whether or not there were any specifications that they wanted to have up front, whether or not you set a minimum bid for the property or you simply looked at what the market would bear, whether or not you placed within there a requirement for right of first refusal if an industry wanted to purchase the place and then, you know, subsequently sell it. You could require that any contract have a right of first refusal in that. So, you know, you're in the driver's seat in terms of you can set the parameters that you will accept for sale, and if those parameters aren't met, simply putting it out for bid doesn't obligate you to accept any of the bids if they don't meet your requirements.
So when do we need to establish that level of specificity?
Again, that could be part of the negotiation process. Part of it would be.
So in other words, tonight you're merely asking for approval to put it out for bid.
Yes, sir.
Those type of conditions could be negotiated with a potential buyer.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it's, I guess, premature to establish what the funds would go to, any funds would be used for, but you anticipate, or you have some suggestions?
Oh yeah, I'm sure I could get lots of suggestions. I can just poll the audience right now. Let me pass around a piece of paper. Well, the reality is that number one, I did check with our legal counsel regarding whether or not there would be restrictions placed upon them. Different restrictions than any of our other general fund income, and there are not. There are no specialized restrictions from the income from the sale of that land. No more than any other restrictions that any other you normally have as a public body and how you spend your money. In terms of having specific requirements for that right now, we certainly have a good deal of unmet need. One of the things, actually, the very next presentation that you're going to hear is about the adoption of mathematics instructional materials, which we have a significant level of need for. And you will hear at your presentation, your April 17th budget presentation, while we are all very pleased and proud and delighted that our teachers, and service personnel were the engine that has ignited, quite frankly, a wildfire across this country of people recognizing and valuing public education and what needs to be done. Since we were the first, that also means that we're going to be one of the first ones to have to pay the piper. So that means in our next budget, we have an additional $1.4 million.
Right.
Just to stay even with what we have right now. And a significant portion of that falls on local shoulders. So while we've been very diligent with our funds, all of a sudden, just to stay static, you have to put an extra $500,600,000 worth of skin in the game that the state's not matching you for. So those are things that all of a sudden, we've been working, we do our due diligence. That squeezes us for the best of all possible reasons, and we'll take that all day, all night. But be realistic that we still have other needs that we have. And right now, to have that infusion, not for ongoing costs. The one thing is, I would never recommend to the board that you take a one-time funding source and you commit it to a recurring cost. But things like instructional materials purchases and things that are one-time costs that support our instructional program, certainly I would think that there would be a good use there.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Other questions? If not, the motion is on granting permission to place 655 McCary Boulevard up for public sale. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Now we come to Mrs. Skinner's favorite part of the presentation, math. Yeah, I do, as a matter of fact.
Couldn't help but say
that. Good point.
I thought you might at some point.
Yeah, thanks for that reminder. Good evening.
Good evening. Wait for our board to warm up here.
Oh.
Good evening again, Mr. President and the Board of Education. My colleagues, Dr. Sherry Hetzel, Mrs. Deborah Arvon, and Mrs. Kathy Farrow, we have with us tonight our K-12 Math Instructional Materials Adoption Committee, and I ask that all members please stand and be recognized. The math committees are tasked with reviewing the West Virginia Board-approved math programs, in addition to soliciting and gathering feedback from their teachers in their school. I thank them for their commitment and their dedication to serving. Thank you. Presenting with me tonight is Mrs. Tammy Kidweiler. Wave your hand, Tammy. Kindergarten teacher from North Jefferson. Miss Taylor Parrish, 5th grade teacher, North Jefferson. Mrs. Jenny Duncan, 6th grade teacher, Harpers Ferry Middle, and Miss Allison Griffin, math teacher from Washington High School. I begin this presentation by asking you to close your eyes. Think back to your math in elementary, middle, or high school. What was your teacher doing? As a learner, what were you doing? You may open your eyes. Turn to a partner and tell your partner what your math teacher was doing. And as a learner, what were you doing?
I'm going to be honest.
3, 2, 1. Thank you for participating. Mrs. Fitzwater, did she leave? Oh, there she is. Would you like to tell us what your partner shared with you?
For sure. We talked about, we were sitting in our seats and we were watching the teacher write on the front board. And we were writing in our notebook and we carried a lot of heavy books around.
A lot of heavy books. Thank you for participating. Now I ask you, did you have the opportunity to talk to a partner about your approach to solving problems? Did you complete worksheets with similar problems that didn't need a whole lot of thinking, but rather task completion? Did your teacher stand at the chalkboard and demonstrate a problem and then assigned you problems that required you to mimic the teacher's steps you observed him or her demonstrate? Were pictures of math concepts already drawn for you so that you didn't have to create your own visuals? These methods are not perceived as wrong, but rather unproductive, and often hinder and limits our students' thinking and doesn't lead to enduring understanding of math concepts and skills. Where does the general public get its information about school? A survey on adult public beliefs and attitudes towards mathematics conducted by researchers Lynn Sam and Paul Ernest found that many parents and educators believe that students should be taught as they were taught, through memorizing facts, formulas, procedures, and then practice these skills over and over and over again. This view perpetuates the traditional lesson paradigm that features review, demonstration, and practice, and is still pervasive in many U.S. classrooms today. So within the context of continuous school improvement, instructional improvement, our administrators and teachers are looking at research literature to inform and strengthen our practice. Our current professional development is based on the following guiding principles. From the National Research Council in its publication entitled Adding It Up, it defines the mathematical proficiency to include the development of 5 interwoven strands. First strand I'm going to talk about is the conceptual understanding. Conceptual understanding is the ability to formulate, represent, comprehend concepts, operations, and relations. Adaptive reasoning. Adaptive reasoning is the capacity for logical thought, reflection, explanation, and to justify one's own thinking. Procedural fluency at the end. This is where most of our instruction lies, is in procedural fluency. Which is skill in carrying out procedures flexibly, accurately, efficiently, and appropriately. Strategic competence is the ability to formulate, represent, and solve mathematical problems. And last but not least is productive disposition. It's the habitual inclination to see mathematics as sensible, useful, worthwhile, with a belief in diligence in one's own efficacy. These 5 strands present a comprehensive view of a successful mathematics learning, and herein lies the foundation of building consistent methodologies and instructional routines for our K-12 mathematics learning. The next slide will provide a glimpse of professional learning from the past 3 years that is supporting our elementary teachers' understanding of these methods. Virginia Board of Education Policy 2520.2b states that all West Virginia teachers are responsible for classroom instruction that integrates content standards and mathematics habits of mind. This is our second layer of consistency that we are building in our K-12 math instruction. These habits of mind describe mathematical proficiency in terms of behaviors, engagement in learning, and thinking mathematically. Every student should develop these competencies during mathematics instruction. Next, I'd like to highlight some additional shifts that our teachers are implementing. First, we have Mrs. Tammy Kidweiler, and she is going to, do you want to do your introduction now, or you want to wait after they view the video?
Do it first.
Okay. She'll let you know.
In the video, you're going to see when we start our math instruction, I have all of my kids come down onto the floor and we do quick images. I call them quick pics because it's easier for my kids to remember. But starting as early as kindergarten, we start flashing quick images. It starts out initially things that go along with our standards and follows our scope and sequence. What you'll be seeing now is when we got into the second 9 weeks, we started with number identification, and they start with dot cards. And what we're attempting to do is start the process of mental math, and they're doing a process called subitizing or subitizing. And what that is, we all do it, we just didn't know what it was called. When you look at a dice and you see 4 pips on the dice, you know that it's a 4. You just automatically know. It's that recognition of patterns and being able to tell without counting individually what that is. So we start out with, and to build flexibility, we put them in a variety of patterns. And what you'll see here is I've shown my kids at a quick flash what the card is. Lots of procedures taught before we get into it, but at this point, I show it and I tell them, what does your brain think it saw? To create that risk-free environment so they're not going, oh, I got the wrong answer, I want to look at my friends. So they draw on their whiteboards, so everybody's getting a chance and I'm seeing what they're doing. They try to replicate my card. So if they need, I didn't see it, so we'll flip another quick flash, not a long time, but a quick flash. Then we'll do a reveal, and I'll get a chance to quickly sweep through and see who has what. Then they have to explain what they saw. So initially it's a little, it's hard, pulling it out of kindergartners, but we're at a point where they say, I saw 2 groups of 2. There were 2, going in a slanted line and 2 over here. So it's starting to build the mental the mental math skills that we need them to have later on. So and by everyone using the tools, they are able to show me what they're doing. And then we're also building the flexibility. Okay, Sally saw it this way. Did anybody see it a different way? So having that justification and explanation, starting with kindergarten, builds that justification later, and then they can build and talk between each other and ask each other questions as well.
Thank you.
Pretty good. I love the patterns that I'm seeing. All right, put your boards in front of you. Do not erase. I'm going to flash it again. If you need to make a change for yours to match mine, I want you to make that change. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Eyes up here. Make yours match mine. Make yours match mine. Get higher. Okay. Hold it up to your chest. Okay. You can have a seat. Okay. This is only the second time.
Okay. Our next video, we would like to highlight an instructional shift that represents model representation, and we have Ms. Taylor Parrish.
So a little background about my classroom. I do have flexible seating, which is a little different than most classrooms. So one of the students is on a ball. Please don't get distracted by that. They have the option to choose where they'd like to sit based on how they feel they can learn best. In this video, you're going to see my students drawing pictures, concrete models, to represent the relationship between mixed numbers and improper fractions. So for example, if it's 3 halves, they would draw 3 1/2 pieces to see that that's 1 1/2. So you'll be able to see that in the video here.
It was my fault, wasn't it? Now. Okay, so does that look more equivalent now? Here. Okay, so now you want to write the words.
How many pieces have I put it into? 3, but I need to have it in common.
You don't even need to go.
So what could I do for reference points to get into the next?
Yes, you can. Stop saying that.
So you go ahead and make the reference points for me.
Where do you think 1/3 might fall?
Think of them like that. You just make a little reference points. Okay, perfect. So you got 6 equal pieces, but you only need how many?
The lady in the red is one of our is our math consultant, and she goes in and provides job embedded professional development with our teachers. So that's who you saw there, and I apologize for my finger. Whoops. I just want to advance it. Our next slide we're going to highlight for you is I want you to understand what conceptual understanding, and I want to share this video clip from Dr. Raj Shaw. He's the owner and founder of Math Plus Academy. This is in Ohio. And he explains why math is taught differently today.
If there's one question that parents ask me just more than just about any other question, it is, why are they teaching math so much differently now than they did when we were growing up? Why don't they just teach the standard algorithms? Why aren't they helping kids just get to the answers and get them quickly? And why are they spending so much time on these things that seem so inefficient? And I have an answer to that question, and I'll start by saying, we have decades of research that shows that teaching people just to memorize algorithms and execute procedures hasn't worked. It's worked for a small group of people, but for most people, they don't like math, they don't enjoy math, they don't think they're good at math, they have a really hard time with it because no one taught them to understand the concepts and why we're doing what we're doing. We didn't teach kids how to think, we just taught them how to do and execute in this misguided idea that we just need them to get to the answer as quickly as possible. But, if we step back and think about it for a second, in this day and age, being able to execute an algorithm in arithmetic to get an answer is a fairly useless skill. Your child and yourself, you have a computer, a calculator, a phone, you have instant access to computing devices at your fingertips. And those devices are going to be more accurate and faster than you are. So what we need to be doing, and this is part of the shift that is being made in education now, is starting to teach kids to think and understand and sometimes use different strategies to solve problems, because the standard algorithms, while they always do work, are not always the most efficient. And I can give you several examples of that. So let me start with a multiplication example, 2-digit multiplication. And as students, we may have learned it, or you've probably learned it, to do the standard algorithm. Line your numbers up vertically, and then start with the ones column and go. 4 times 5 is 20. We're not allowed to write the whole 20 here, we just write the 0 and bring the 2 up there. So that's the first place where we're doing something that is kind of weird. Then we do 4 times 4, which is 16. We have to remember to add in the 2, which is 18, and we place that there. Again, we haven't really told anyone exactly why we're doing that, but that's how you execute the procedure. Then you put in your, what I used to call the placeholder 0, so you put a 0 here. And you move over to this number, and you do 2 times 5 is 10. You only write the 0, and then we don't need this anymore. We carry a 1. And then 2 times 4 is 8, and add in that 1, which is 9. And then we add these all together, 0, 0, 0. Here's an 8, and here's 10. And it's 1,080. Hopefully that's right. Now, these days, before we teach kids the standard algorithm, we might teach them what's called partial products, where we're going to help them see what's going on with place value in these problems. So again, we'll start with 4 times 5, which is 20. And we'll just go ahead and write that whole thing right here, 20. That's the first part of the problem. The next is we're going to do 4 times this 4. But we're teaching students that this is not a 4. It is the digit 4, but when it lives in this column, it actually represents 40. 4 times 40 is 160. And you'll notice this is the 180 that was there, so there's nothing really different going on, just in how to write it down. Then I have not 2, but 20 times 5, which is 100. And I have 20 times 40, which is 800. And you'll notice again, these two here are 900, that's just what we have there. We'll add them all up, and we will get 1,080 again. Now, you might say, well, this isn't very efficient. Look how many steps that was. Look how many things I had to write down. And you're right, but we now have a conceptual understanding of place value. We're not having to write numbers up here and scribble them out, which is a bit confusing. And we're still getting the same result. So we'll teach this to students first so they understand what's going on. Later we can teach them the shortcut so they can save a tiny bit of paper to get to this answer. But there you go. And then we might even give them a visual picture of what's going on. When you multiply two numbers, you can think of that as the area of a rectangle. And this rectangle would be 24 units on this side and 45 units on that side. And if I break it up like this, and I imagine this to be 40 and 5, and this side to be 20 and 4, then I can compute the area of these 4 little internal rectangles. This one here is 20 by 40, which is 800. This one here is 40 by 4, which is 160. The little one is 5 by 4, which is 20. And this other one, vertical one here, is 5 by 20, which is 100. And you'll notice those are all the same numbers that we had over here. Okay, so it's the same thing, but now I'm giving you a visual picture of what's going on. And it turns out that this picture becomes in really handy when we get to algebra, because we can replace these with variables and still be able to figure things out. But that's probably an aside for another time. But now I have different ways of conceptualizing what's going on before I get to the standard algorithm. Okay? This helps kids understand. It helps kids apply concepts rather than just memorize. And it also helps them identify times when they don't need the standard algorithm. So an example of that would be, say we have 73 times 10. I can't tell you how many times I've seen students line that up vertically just like this and execute the algorithm and put in a bunch of zeros and go through all the steps to get a result that they should have been able to get just using their mind. If you understand place value and what 10 means in our number system, then 73 times 10 is just 730. You're just moving the decimal place. But again, if you don't understand the concept, all you have to fall back on is a procedure which gets you a result. But sometimes you don't even know if the result is correct or not. You just have to assume it is, hoping you've done everything right. So we're teaching, this is why we're teaching math so much differently now. And there is research that shows that when you give people a conceptual understanding of what's going on, it really helps them get answers that we want them to get and explain their thinking, and also look for better ways to do things, because the standard algorithms are not always the best way to do things. So I hope that helps you as a parent see why math is so much different now. The other thing that is a corollary to that first question is, I don't know how to help my students with the math because it's so different, and these homework assignments look so confusing because I've never seen anything like this before. And I think that question kind of proves the point of, if you learn math in a way where it was always this way, always follow these steps, this is how it works, then you never learn to have flexible thinking, how to take numbers apart and put them back together, how to find shortcuts, how to be creative in mathematics. And that's where some of the beauty, most of it actually, lies in mathematical thinking. Isn't it executing algorithms? That's kind of boring. But learning how to think and solve problems is a lot of fun. And so teaching math this way also can bring back a lot of fun to mathematics. Now I know when you're sitting with your child doing homework that you've never seen before and it looks really different, it can be a little complicated, but I want you to have an open mind. Read the directions, see if you can understand it. I'm not going to say that every homework assignment that ever comes home from school is is perfect and well designed. There may be some weird ones out there, but by and large, the goal, if you keep in mind, is to help them understand. I think you'll have a better sense of what's going on and maybe a better mindset for how to help your child with mathematics at home.
Thank you, Raj. So this next slide, our elementary math committee's selection to put on public review is McGraw-Hill's math program. A few highlights from the committee's review is that our program provides an engagement with problem solving of the day and real-world videos. Also, this program provides performance tasks where students explore and have an opportunity to explain their thinking. This program also provides grade level stations and differentiated games are provided so students will have a chance to elaborate through the differentiated games opportunities. And last but not least, but students will be able to evaluate cross-curricular problem solving as well. And I just want to give you a couple more visuals as evidence of some of these practices that you will see in our elementary math classrooms. So if you take a look at the pictures, what do you notice? I'm just going to walk closely. Here we have students drawing their own pictures to make sense of a problem. So this is 2 plus, we'll put together with 5. And then over here we have a picture of students drawing their pictures. They're working on multiplication. It's an introductory lesson on multiplication. In the right-hand corner we have some students that are collaborating. They're working in a game. This is actually Mrs. Renner, who's in the audience with us tonight. This is her classroom. They are working on building number sense with practicing making 10 using domino cards, and those are paper. Those purple cards are paper dominoes. And also the other picture is at C.W. Shipley with the 4th grade class. They are collaborating with an assignment that their teacher, problem solving with an assignment that their teacher assigned them. And look at the smile, bringing back the fun and joy in math. Okay. Our third layer of K-12 math consistency is the development and implementation of our pacing guide. Each programmatic level has one, and the expectation is that all teachers follow these guides to ensure consistency in teaching the standards. We have provided a copy for you. There's a sample copy for 3rd grade in your packet, and also a middle school 7th grade and also high school Math 2. We provided a copy for you to look at a little bit closely. So here we have the 3rd grade sample from the second 9 weeks. If you take a look at the sample provided, you'll notice that the standards are listed. We have quick images available for our teachers, and we also provide activities for teachers to use. The blue lettering that you see indicates a hyperlink to a description of a lesson plan or the written activity for that particular standard. Okay. All pacing guides are available online for teachers to access and to use the suggested resources. Now I'd like to turn this presentation over to Mrs. Jenny Duncan, who will present for the middle schools.
Good evening. As teachers, we realize you want to see the K through 12 smooth transition to 3 programmatic levels. Looking at our host of resources that we have, I ask that you see how these strategies we are bringing to you mirror those strategies that Mrs. Mahoney shared in her opening. When we look at the 6th through 8 pacing guide, which you have, this indeed is one of a host of tools that guides us through our K through 12 instruction. The standards drive our instruction and the consistency across grade levels. As a 6th grade teacher, I have to say that I have seen a change for the better in the past few years. I teach at Harpers Ferry. I have 4 feeder schools. I often want to teach my kids, oh, do you know how this works? And then they're like, yeah, we already know. And I'm like, oh, I wanted to show you that. But the elementary school teachers have been doing a really good job with the conceptual understanding of mathematics, and it just keeps getting better and better. At the middle school level, we have been working diligently to continue the educational shift for mathematics. We have had many professional development trainings to improve instructional strategies that optimize student engagement and require students to think critically about math. In a clip you're about to see, my class is implementing one of those strategies given by a professional development class taught by Mr. John Strebe. And this strategy is called Player versus Coach. Students were assigned partners strategically, one given the role as a coach while the other was given the role as a player. And at first the coach talks the player up as if a coach would, like during a baseball game, like, you're gonna hit this out of the park, you know, we've been preparing for this, you know, they get a chance to be a little silly. And the coach writes the, in this case they were expressions. The coach writes the expression on the board, and the player has to talk about how to solve the problem, but the coach has to do all the writing. So the player explains, and the coach has to write exactly what the player says. And in the end, they celebrate their success as if they won a game. And in this clip, you can see that my kids are actively engaged, moving around and collaborating with each other. And in this particular class, there were 21 students, so I got to participate to make an even number, players versus coaches. The middle school instructional support materials selection to put on public review is HMH Go Math. A few highlights from the committee's review is that each lesson is presented with the 5 E's: engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. The lesson presents itself at the beginning very engaging, and I think parents would like this too. When you go home, there's a QR code that you can scan, and if there's a homework assignment that parents are unsure of, resources will automatically come up. So maybe like a YouTube lesson, you know, on reviewing. I think parents are really going to like that. There's lots of exploring in every lesson, conceptual. Students are given the opportunity to explain, you know, their thinking with each other or even by themselves. There's a lot of elaboration. There's whiteboard activities. There's games. There's higher level thinking. Lots of differentiated instruction. There's reteach components, more practice, and then there's challenge for those enrichment kids that need more of a push. And there's multiple evaluation tools that you have with each lesson.
Thank you, Mrs. Duncan.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Mrs. Allison Griffin and she'll present for the high school, I should say.
Good evening. The High School Adoption Committee selection to put on public review is Big Ideas by Cengage. A few highlights from the committee's review are that the program best provides support of the standards in the same areas as our K-8 resources. Included in the support are ways to engage our students, allow them the freedom to explore, explain, and elaborate on the concepts through real-life examples, use technology, complete performance tasks, and be evaluated in multiple ways. Again, our pacing guide is our tool that will enable the smooth transition between grade levels. Our county consistency lies in the pacing guides, the conceptual understanding, and the professional learning that is provided across the K-12 grade levels, not in a single textbook or resource. We are all in agreement that the standards drive our instruction, and we have worked to select the resources that best meet the needs of all students at all levels.
Thank you, Mrs. Griffin. On our last slide, I'd like to draw your attention to the student smile. These pictures encapsulate a guaranteed outcome of these instructional shifts. We want our students having fun learning math, and we want them to build confidence and perseverance while doing so. So in closing, we ask that you support our math committee's request to place these selected instructional materials on public review. The committee feels these resources will support the math standards. In addition, we will continue to provide job-embedded professional development to ensure a consistent, high-quality K-12 research-based math instruction for all students. On behalf of my colleagues and the committee, we thank you for your attention and your support.
Thank you. that was.
Some love.
That was fascinating. It was. Let's get a motion so we can discuss.
So moved.
Okay, and a second. Thank you. Well done. Well done.
Very well done.
Okay, who's got some questions? Who wants to start?
I'm just thrilled I didn't see the lattice problem up there. Please no.
It really is. It's been around since the ancient Greeks.
And Scott might know it.
Yes. But I also now understand why my kids didn't want me helping them with their homework. Because I kept trying to do it all wrong.
No, and again, and I think that they made a great point of not wrong.
Right.
We don't want parents to think that the way they did it was wrong. It's just we've expanded so much past that to help kids love math and have some flexibility around it.
I had a couple questions. So in the curriculum with the mapping guide that we have, that I know we've worked on, and I'm so excited to see it. It's just wonderful. And it's so exciting, and I know that so many of you guys worked so hard to put it together. So who is responsible for changing it when we have new textbooks and curriculum? Okay. So will we have that, depending on how we get public feedback and whatnot, will we have that to be able to be done by the fall, that all of the little unit one, this book, whatever, will be implemented, so we'll have...
Well, and actually we discussed that on the committee, there was so much time put into that pacing guide. And, well, actually it's a scope and sequence. So as we look at it, we looked at what do they need to move on to, build onto that skill and onto that skill. And Allison Howard did a great job. She went into the My Math, and she does first grade. And she actually went in, found units to go with each of the standards that were being taught, the different skills and concepts that were being taught. So as a committee, we will be going in to our program, and we're able to find it online. So we'll go online and we will connect where the teachers will be able to find it. So it's not like everybody's going in and fumbling through the new book, oh, this isn't in the same sequence. They'll be able to access it on the scope and sequence and be able to pull that resource in along with the other resources that we use as well.
And then how many standards, I'm thinking not as much at the elementary level, but more for the high school level and the SAT, being ready to take that in 11th grade with the high school curriculum. How close do we feel like those standards align with getting all that needs to be taught by the time we have to take that test in 11th grade? Do we know how close that might be?
The stumbling issue is Math 2. Because Math 2 has over 60 standards. It is content rich.
Okay.
But that's 10th grade. So then in 11th grade, in Math 3, we catch up. We start by catching up what might have gotten dropped in Math 2. Okay. So we're getting them as close as we can to what they need for the SAT. We'll find out tomorrow.
No offense, but I don't feel like this year is any data worthy anything, frankly, with what we've had experience.
If we take the same test more than once,
yeah, that would be a joy.
Right. Wouldn't it? That's a novel idea.
Sure is. Having one actually aligned to the standards and not as a college trainer.
So do you feel, from what I'm hearing you say, do you feel that Math 1 is positive, Math 2 not so much, Math 3, 4 back to a positive, to where, so Math 2 incorporates what, Algebra 2 and Geometry, or Algebra 1?
They all have some of it all. And it's just the quadratic part of Math 2 is huge. It takes a semester to cover just those standards. And then you've got the trig, and you've got the statistics, and it's just, most of the other years are about 50 standards. That year is 62.
10 more standards is a lot of content.
And
it would be delightful if we could do Math 2 in 2 years.
I was just going to say, do you feel like there's any place that we can move that? Or do you feel like our students from our middle school folks, are our students ready to look at everybody as Math 1 in 8th grade? And then Math 2 is 9th and 10th grade.
I can't speak to that. I'm at the other end of that.
But
long term,
an interesting point though is with the reduction in the credit requirements. If that gives us some flexibility to do a split on Math 2A, Math 2B,
that would be wonderful.
And I would like to speak to that because I'm a special ed teacher at the high school, but I have an endorsement to teach math to special needs students. And I feel like once you get to the 9th grade, really sort of the range of skill levels really spreads out. And you have children that aren't conceptually ready to cram all of Math 2 into 1 year, but if you stick with them over a longer period of time, they really get it, but they can't do it in 1 year. And I almost feel like we need the old P1, where the kids went from kindergarten to P1 to first grade. We need like, we need P9. P9, yeah. We need like 9th grade and then P9 and then 10th grade. Like some of those children aren't really ready to fully finish 9th grade and start 10th grade. And I don't know how to address that. I mean, we're asking kids to fit into a square hole. You know,
okay, well now you're talking about fixing public education.
Well, yes.
I don't know about you tonight, going home tonight, but you guys are dead on in terms. First of all, you guys are amazingly good at what you do. But that's a great, having these rich instructional conversations are what's taken us into the top 3 in the state in math and what's gonna keep driving that. So excellent ideas and suggestions, and I think this will inform not only the instructional materials adoption, but us as we look at other programmatic, we're looking at the credit issues right now and how to restructure around both reduced credits or perhaps advanced diploma with the current number of credits and keeping those and some options. And if we can buy some flexibility in there, that's fantastic. It's a great idea. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Other questions? So what are we actually being at? Well, so we're putting this out for review, but these are instructional materials, but they're not really textbooks, right? Explain.
They are. That is one of the range of instructional materials. Some of it is electronic support. Some of it is textbooks. Some of it, particularly at the lower levels, may be manipulative kits to help support those. So we're really trying to get away from the idea, right. And these teachers have just led the way and been exemplary in this, in that the focus is the content. They're master teachers. They know what they're doing. The state sets the standard, and rather than handing them a book and say, week 1, chapter 1, here we go, and follow along, if that's all we needed, then we wouldn't need their level of expertise and flexibility. What we have to be better about is, and a textbook is one of them, don't get me wrong, it's going to be hard to ever completely get away from that because you need sort of an anchor for some of those things, but it's a tool in a whole wide tool belt of electronic media and communication and manipulative and a host of other things where those teachers need to be able to reach in and pick out which one works for that particular situation for that kid. And what they're asking is for the board to be able to put those materials out, the electronic materials, the textbook materials, manipulative options for people to see those. And then the idea, and we surveyed our teachers, the idea is that they will sit down building by building and look at their population and, quite frankly, build out kits. They may say, hey, what we really need is an iPad cart and these 5 apps and 2 classroom sets of these texts to share and 50 of these boxes of math manipulatives. Okay, great. Go with God. That's fantastic. It's our job to help support you with some flexibility. And it's asking for you to place those materials out. Now, the state this is not, we're not surprisingly ahead of where some of the state materials adoption. They're still really textbook focused.
Yeah.
Here's the books, here's what you can look at, and you need to adopt one of these books. So that's a piece of it, but kudos to these teachers for how far they've gotten beyond that basic concept.
We need to be sure we fund this properly, though, because we need to be sure they have the manipulatives and things like that, so teachers aren't going out and buying them themselves.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
And that was something too, we talked about inventory each school to find out, because I mean, a lot of the things you use for multiple different concepts. So, you know, like when you go into a classroom, there's a ton of stuff already there. So that's something, instead of just buying mass amounts, what do you actually need, as opposed to we're just going to buy the same amount for everybody.
Yeah.
Other questions? If not, all in favor of approving the recommendation to put these materials out on public review for what, how long?
At least 2 weeks.
Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Just like to echo the superintendent's comments. This was a fascinating presentation, and it was so great to hear about instruction, and also to see teachers from across grade levels and across all our schools working together on a curriculum for the entire school system. It's outstanding. We really appreciate the work you're doing, and we started off with what, a 5th grade math student tonight. That was awesome. Just awesome. So thank you for what you do for our kids. We really appreciate it. Okay, is that it for new business? We anticipate an executive session.
Yes, sir.
Any on personnel?
Yes, sir.
And we anticipate action?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we would, so we'll entertain a motion to move to executive session for personnel issues. We anticipate action in which we would return to public session for action. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. We'll take a 5-minute break.